What is up, everybody? You're very welcome along. Delighted to say I'm joined by my friend Kyle from Nothing But Reds. Kyle, how are you?
Yeah, I'm great, Craig. How you doing, man?
Personally, I'm good. I'm good, but yeah, the football stuff's starting to wind me up a little bit. And you're a bit like Mr. Steve Bland. You're a very level-headed, rational dude. So occasionally, I need to come out of my own little bubble and challenge myself with other people's views, which I like to do.
You got to do it. That's the best way to stay level-headed is to just listen to other people, which I feel like at times some people have a tough time doing, which is understandable. But yeah, we're here to just chat it up, man.
So right now, I mean, I don't want to bring your nationality into this. The only time I want to bring your nationality into this is because you may have had prior exposure to what happened at the Red Sox. That's the only. I don't want this to be an American anti-American thing, but from your perspective and your time watching how FSG go about their business, are you in any way concerned with what's going on at Liverpool, or do you think that there is a master plan in place?
Sure, I'm a little concerned, as any fan would be. But like I was telling you before we went live, I do feel like there is a master plan in place. I feel like in general, Klopp and, FSG in particular, are just very low key about how they do business, regardless of if it's outgoings or, incoming players. But you do have to look at the fact that it's been almost a year since we got Konate, right? Konate was the only signing of that summer. The last big transfer window we had was, Thiago, Jota, Simikas. And you do have to question it. But at the same time, guys, just I think this is how I look at it. Take a step back. And this is where, listening to other fans comes into play. You see where we're at. We're in a Carabao Cup final since the first time since, I think, 2015. And look at how we've done with Mane and Salah gone. Way better than I thought we were going to do. We've gained ground on City. And I'm not saying I haven't missed them, because of course I've missed them. But just the way that we've been able to plug and play, and I feel like we haven't really lost any ground. And you look at the AFCON tournament, Naby Keita, I think, got knocked out. He's on his way back, I think. And I think Salah and Mane are getting towards the end of the tournament. So, I mean, I think I'm in a positive mood, but I am concerned with the amount of business that's being done. Why are we not doing at least some sort of business? Is Klopp really that happy with what we have right now? And if, based on what's going on, I feel like that answer is yes, man.
It is a difficult one, I will grant you, because sometimes I struggle to square off the idea that Klopp is genuinely happy. But then the other part of me understands that he is first and foremost a coach, and his success and his joy will come a lot from bringing through players, the likes of Harvey Elliott, Curtis Jones.
Sure.
So I love that about Klopp. I do. But I can't help but feel, Kyle, with the amount of forward strides that we've made as a club in the financial aspect, commercial partnerships, certainly doing better in the league than we had, always going deep in the Champions League, that to say FSG are risk averse probably is an understatement. So there are two sides to this for me. There's the part of me that fully appreciates that we aren't in a whole load of debt right now, that we are trying to balance the books. But there's another part of me that knows that that's a bit of, I suppose, it's a bit of a dream. You can't balance the books really and compete in football. It just isn't really feasible for me. And I understand that they're risk averse, but I also understand that we need a rebuild right now. We have not a complete rebuild top to bottom, but we certainly need 3-4 top caliber players. And if they are willing to do that every 3 or 4 years, great. But I don't feel like they are willing to do it. And that's where my real concern is.
Okay, so let's take the rebuild statement, for example. So by definition, a rebuild, in my opinion, of course, would be selling all of your top players for as much value as they're worth, or I don't even think letting their contracts run out would be classified as a rebuild. And then using the assets you get, whether it's money or in European football, it's money, right? You sell players. Very rarely do you have swap deals going on. And you acquire young talent, promising talent, like you brought up in your beginning of your statement. You have Harvey Elliott coming through, Curtis Jones, and that's how you rebuild. I feel like Arsenal are knee deep in a rebuild right now. It's a great example. Okay. A lot of young talent at the squad. You're bringing young players in. They're still acquiring talent as well. Hector Bellerin went away, Tommy Isu coming in. Anyways, I don't think we're in a rebuild. I think we're in the peak of what Klopp's assembled team is able to do. And you look at how we've done the last 3 seasons, and that's evident of that. Do I think we need to start preparing for the future? Absolutely. That's where I'm on the same page. And that's where I don't have a problem bringing in a promising young player and letting him sit on the bench and kind of observe what these top players are doing, how the club is run. And then when their time has come, 18 months, whenever some of these top players' contracts are up, which I want to extend, but we can get into that in a minute, let them step up and take the reins. Okay. But I don't think Liverpool want to waste a player's time. Look at Chelsea. Chelsea have no problem whatsoever bringing in $50+ million signings and letting them just rot away on the bench. They have no problem doing that. And to me, they always have cover. So credit to them. I feel like that's the difference, a big difference between the clubs. We don't want to bring in players that are just going to rot away. Okay. And that's where it comes to the caliber of backup players we have. Minamino, Origi, right? These guys who just plug and play. Maybe they're not the best backup players. Of course, we want players who are top notch. There's players out there who are better than them. Okay. But when they have come on the field, what have they done? Minamino has been outstanding this season when he's played, in my opinion. So I just think we're doing it right at this point. But I do agree that bringing in players in 2 years' time, for them to be ready, you should probably start bringing them in now.
I would respectfully disagree on Minamino. I think he's been shite.
I saw the record, right? I think he set a record for the quickest goal as a substitute. Not that says anything about his skill. I know, but I'm just saying.
Again, though, I feel like there is some merit on both sides of this debate, and I am certainly more hot-headed than a lot of people, but I am also a realist, and I understand that you've made some very well researched, articulated points. But what I would say is, so the rebuild thing, yes, I agree. I think we're certainly a lot further along in our development than Arsenal are right now. No doubt about that.
Oh,
but for me, we haven't replaced Gini Wijnaldum. We've only just replaced Dejan Lovren. Now, granted, an almightily good replacement in Canade.
No, but you're right. You're right. It took a while to replace him. You're right.
But I do know why you're saying what you're saying. See, I know you better than some of the people in the chat. So I know that when you say that Klopp wants the right person to come in, he's willing to wait if it's a Canade or if he has a Bellingham in mind or if he has. So I get where you're coming from. I get that you're giving the benefit of the doubt that we have this list of targets that Klopp doesn't really want to fall back on. So I get that point, but I just feel like, again, Kyle, my big fear is that 1 year turns into 2 years, turns into 3 years, and we're looking back at this time and just thinking about what might have been while others have caught up with us. And that's my real fear here, is that Spurs are bringing in Conte and trying to build. Arsenal certainly building, no doubt about that. United floundering, which is great to see. Chelsea, I agree with you, a little bit hit and miss. And I certainly wouldn't like to see the cold shoulder treatment that some of their players seem to be getting from the outside. But I do think that maybe we're looking to be a little bit too smart, too clever, too perfect, and that there are plenty of available options.
No, absolutely. I agree 100% with that last point. We seem like we're being way too picky, way too greedy. But if you take a step back and you look at, how that's worked out for us, it's been pretty good. It's worked out pretty well. I mean, we have a quality side right now. But again, I want the fan base to be happy. Like I'm still frustrated by the fact that, we missed out on potential players that we could have brought in, right? Timo Werner, for example, he got snatched out from under us, right? Because we were a little bit stingy on that deal. That pissed me off a little bit. Okay. Going through this whole transfer window without doing any sort of business would definitely piss me off. And I feel like we're going that route right now. Again, I agree with the Gini Wijnaldum. We haven't really replaced him. If I'm being an optimist, as people would say, being a top red, whatever, okay? I think we planned ahead with that, getting in Thiago. That's just my opinion, though, because I think we knew that Gini didn't accept our offer. But again, Thiago's always injured, right? Or it seems like he's always injured. There's no doubt that he's a quality player, completely changes our midfield when he plays. But these are things you have to look at. And I understand why people are upset, and I get upset at times as well. And, at times it's not fair to say, oh, well, we have Curtis Jones, or, oh, we have Harvey Elliott coming back looking like a new signing. I don't agree with those things, okay? Yes, they're great options for the future, but are they great options right now? You could say they have a good game here or there, but not compared to these other teams who just have complete and utter talented depth all over their bench. Not compared with us. But again, there's two sides to every token. You got to look at it both ways.
On the Thiago thing, I kind of get where you're coming from, and I also feel that Jurgen would have certainly envisioned a lot more minutes for Harvey Elliott. And look, we can make this one of two ways. We can sit here and I could say, well, we've been unlucky with what happened to Harvey, which was absolutely the case. But I've also seen this happen enough times watching football to know that you should be planning for every eventuality, and that, you know, last season should have taught us a lesson about not having enough bodies to cover the positions that we need. And this season, I feel like we've got Keita, Thiago, and Oxlade-Chamberlain, similar mold of player, are attack-minded midfielders, if you want. And honestly, all three of them, for varying reasons, aren't dependable. Some of them through injury concerns, some of them through... Actually, with Oxlade-Chamberlain, I just feel he's got a touch of the Jimmy Milner syndrome about him, is that nobody actually knows his best position. He can play in a whole host of positions and can be utilised there, but isn't necessarily a specialist in any one of them. Whereas Keita and Thiago can unlock a defence, can play really well in the final third, but both of them are a little bit injury prone, to say the least.
A little bit, yeah. I was going to say they're very injury prone. Yeah, and all three of them have struggled with injuries. Ox somewhat getting a rhythm now. I was looking at a statistic. You know, Ox has some of the, or one of the highest, aside from Robertson and Trent, progressive carries on the squad. So that's good to see. Like, you look at, I'm a big statistics guy. I know a lot of people say you can't just look at statistics because you have to do the eye test and opposition, all that stuff. I get it. But again, I'm looking at things because I love the team. I'm looking at positives in this team. Is Ox necessarily good enough compared to other players that we've slot in the front line? I mean, Ox has played virtually everywhere. Probably not. He's probably not. He's 28 years old. He's technically in his prime, and he's not producing as a top-level player. Yes, he scores goals here and there. Do I like Ox? Yes. Another thing you got to bring up, James Milner's getting old. He's got to go. We got to replace James Milner. I love James Milner. Everyone loves James Milner. Man was the best left back in the world for an entire season. Okay? He's not even a left back.
Liz loves him on a whole different level.
I know. And that's great. I love that Liz loves James as much as that. All right? But he's got to go. We got to freshen up the squad. Okay? Like, that's my opinion. Okay? James getting old. You got to freshen up the squad. When Harvey went out, yes, I agree. You have to prepare for that. You got to prepare for all the injuries. All right. Part of me thinks that maybe they were feeling too optimistic about the depth they had, okay, during the injury-prone season, and that led to the whole injury crisis. And it doesn't seem like they learned from it based on the acquisitions we got, okay? So I understand that, and it does bother me a little bit. Like, you would think that we would spend huge this past summer, but no, we only brought in Konate, which I guess you could argue, yeah, we got one player for the defense, which is where our injury problem was, but is that enough? We should have been preparing for the midfield issue. You got Thiago, who's above 30 years old. James Milner is almost damn near 40. All right. You got to start preparing for the future. Naby Keita's coming out of contract. Are we going to extend him? I don't think we'll extend him. I don't know if he's necessarily earned it. You got to think about these things.
There are a lot of things there that I want to touch on, particularly the contractual situation of a few players. But before I do, and this is my gripe, by the way. This isn't Kyle, so don't aim anything at him on this. This is me. I was reading around today, Kyle, and one of my big gripes is that I think there are a lot too many people towing the company line with regards to people who have an influence over fans. So certain channels, certain media outlets, and I want to call out the Echo on a couple of things today. And I gave you forewarning about the two things I was going to bring up beforehand, but here's an example of two articles out today on the Echo that drives me demented. So first one, Liverpool and Nike get shirt boost as potential 70 million deal takes shape. That's great to hear. We all love to hear that the club are making great financial steps, but to us as fans right now, the way a lot of us are feeling, all we read there is Liverpool or FSG and Nike are about to make more money and we won't see a damn penny of it. And that's how most of us feel at the minute. And the second one is Liverpool's £75 million transfer record under threat as clock ticks on new landmark. That's just gobbledygook. There is no substance to this. This is just FSG apologetic behavior, towing the company line, trying to keep on side with people in case they don't get access to it. And to me, if you want to be a real journalist, if you want to be out, you've got to ask questions. But I also agree that I'm probably too far on one side And I need to speak to people like yourselves to form a well-rounded opinion who may view things in a more calm, rational light than me. But for me, mate, this just does my head in. It just does my head in that there are people who have access and won't ask the questions because of this age-old circle of you ask the difficult questions, you may not be let back in.
Well, think about 99% of any transfer article that comes out is just bullshit. Think about it. Think about how many transfer links have come. It's all bullshit. So really, we're just speculating on things that don't even exist and getting upset about things that don't even exist. I don't believe Virgil van Dijk is $75 million player. Okay. We know that. We spent that. But like, who are we going to spend more than that for? Right? Like Jude Bellingham links are putting him up there. We've actually been linked heavily with Jude Bellingham. Who wouldn't want Jude Bellingham? But let me ask you honestly, Craig, would you pay that much for Jude Bellingham?
100%.
You would. Okay.
Let me come back to you at a point. I feel, in my cynical mind, that the groundwork is being laid here for, well, we'll have to sell Mohamed Salah to fund these deals. That's my endearing fear and worry here.
Oh, me too. Me too.
And I've seen a couple of other people start to say that Mo shouldn't get what he wants. Now, I think the term want here is pretty unfair from some people in here. I think he's looking for parity to what he could rightfully earn elsewhere. And the hypocrisy of this ideology that come to Liverpool will incentivize your contract, which I think is genius. I'm fully on board with that. Yeah. But what happens when people start surpassing these targets and looking for a payday? Surely they've earned that payday. They've shown that they have put these numbers up over a consistent level of time. And whatever way we look at this, even if Salah gets done, Kyle, it's not a great look on the club that it's taken this long when we've seen Kevin De Bruyne at Manchester City just extended very quickly, no fuss sorted out.
I agree 100%. Give Salah whatever he wants. I do think there is a limit, though, of course. I mean, seriously, if you look at how Mo Salah's performed since he's been at Liverpool, the man is legitimately worth whatever the best, top, most experienced players in the world are making. And some of them are making 500,000 plus a week. So in theory, yes, he's worth that. Is he going to get paid that, or is he even asking for that, Craig? I don't think so. I think he's actually asking for a very reasonable, considering what he's produced for Liverpool, a very reasonable offer. And not only that, you guys got to understand the agent is the one doing all of the talking. Salah's probably told the agent maybe once or twice, like what he's looking for. The agent's probably consulted with him, like, look, this is what you can get, and this is what you should be asking for. And Salah gave him the go-ahead. The agent works for Salah, and of course, his agent will get a cut. I'm not sure what agency he's with, but regardless, that's how it works.
He actually doesn't have an agent. He has a legal advisor in Remy Abbas who I think handles all of his affairs, but I don't think he's technically an agent. I'm doing this a lot lately, by the way.
Hey, who cares? Yeah, no, but that's what's going on. So I think they're trying to iron out all those incentives you talked about. That's my opinion. I think it's going slow because this is a very big deal. Like it is. It's a huge contract. It's going to be the most expensive contract, if it's done, that Liverpool have given to any player in history. Okay, and it's just going to be groundbreaking. Okay, that's why it's a big deal. I am very much in the camp that it's going to get done. If it doesn't get done, I'll lose my mind, honestly. And what will even make it worse, if Salah leaves on a free, there's going to be an uprising. I think I've said that before on this channel. Like, there's going to be an uprising if Salah leaves on a free. Because at the very least, and I'm not saying this should happen, but I'm saying worst case scenario, you can't reach an agreement with him, you have to sell him. You can't let the guy leave on a free. You have to sell him. At least get value for what he's worth.
Yes, I absolutely understand and think you're correct with that. But what worries me, Kyle, is I read an article on The Athletic, who, by the way, I think are excellent, The Athletic. I think the work that they do
very good. Yeah.
And I read this article and they were speaking with an agent. And the agent was saying that 2 years to go, club have the advantage in the contract negotiations. 18 months to go, it's a little bit less likely the player's going to sign on. If you get to 12 months, though, remaining on that contract, the incentives for that player to not sign the contract far outweigh any potential benefit, unless a club starts throwing silly money down. So every day that it goes by, the club's hand is being weakened. And if they are going to sell him, call me a cynical asshole again, but if it was me and I was FSG, I'd tie him down to a new deal and then sell him. If that was my plan. If that was my plan, I'd tie him down to a new deal, keep him for another 6 months, and then, oh, look, this shock offer came in the summer. If they want to sell him, now they shouldn't be looking to sell him.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Nobody seems to be able to box off their rationale behind this taking so long.
No, and it shouldn't be taking long. I mean, you would think they'd get it done so quick. I saw someone asking in the chat if Van Dijk's deal got done so quick, but I'm pretty sure this was Van Dijk's first extension. Correct me if I'm wrong. Since he signed, his new contract was his first extension. I think I'm right with that.
Correct.
Okay. Salah's already had one extension, I'm pretty sure. Okay. He's already signed. He signed a new contract, I believe, after his first season.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Mane, they all did it at the same time, I believe.
Right. So that's probably why. That's just to answer that concern. Okay. This is the second contract, or third technically. But again, that's just addressing that point. Man, can you just imagine a world, Craig, where we actually don't get the Salah deal done? Because I can't. I legitimately, it boggles my mind why it wouldn't get done, regardless of how much it's worth. Why would it not get done?
Exactly. There's no logical rhyme or reason if your goal is to continue to improve and maintain your presence at the top of world football to not get this guy that you're probably even going to sign, Kyle, even if it is 350, 400 grand. It's probably still lower than what he could get elsewhere. I mean, look, David De Gea, 350 grand for United, keeper. We've seen Martial this week went to Sevilla. He was 240 grand a week at United. I mean, there are players getting infinitely more than this. So, again, mate, it's not a great look on the club. Even if it gets resolved now, it's at a point where it still feels like Mo is going to feel unappreciated at the back of his mind. At least that's my take on it. And we've seen this play out with Steven Gerrard before, and he nearly left for Chelsea simply because he wasn't feeling the love. He wasn't feeling wanted. And it wasn't by the fan base.
Yeah. And, Salah's not the type of guy to go to the media with his displeasure. I mean, he said before, I want to stay at the club. It's up to the club, right? Genie said the same thing. So that looks bad on the club that we didn't extend Genie. Again, we could debate that all day in terms of his production, what he thought he was worth, and all that stuff. But Salah's absolutely got all the leverage now. He's so good that you need to pay him at least what De Bruyne's making. Okay. At least what all these scrubs are making. Okay. You said Anthony Martial's on 240 a week. Are you joking? That's ridiculous. It's a ridiculous amount of money.
This does my head in. So this is the go-to argument for all the local arseholes. All these FSG outers have short fucking memories. They've given us everything we've asked for. I bet none of you are even from here. See, that's the crux of it, isn't it? That's what's annoying you. The fact that we dare to have an opinion, not being born and bred in an L postcode. Now, my pedigree chum, let me just say to you that, do you not have an opinion when they were trying to put the ticket prices up to 77 quid? Oh, you did, because that hurts your pocket because you're local. Okay. But us foreigners, bad. Locals, who, by the way, are some of the whingiest, fucking bitchiest fans I've ever been on the cop with. Suddenly, we don't have an opinion. Here's the thing, mate. We have one of the biggest platforms in the world for Liverpool, and your little stupid opinions won't change that. So, from me to you, mate, just try and just understand that your club's a global club. Without me, Kyle, Americans, Australians, New Zealanders, Finnish people, your city wouldn't have the influx of people that we have, who, by the way, fall in love with your city when we go there because it's amazing. People are fantastic. But this small-mindedness needs to stop, because are all the players local? Is the manager local? Are the owners local? Do you only listen to bands from Liverpool, mate? No, you don't, because you like to broaden your horizons. So I take real offense, not just for me, for everybody, when I see that type of small-minded mentality. It just does my head in, Kyle. We were talking about NFL beforehand, just before the stream. And I was saying to you how I'm a new convert to the game and how I really enjoyed the game at the weekend there between the Chiefs and the Bills. And what an amazing last 2 minutes it was. Yeah. And you could have very easily been snobby towards me and go, but you don't really understand the intricacies. Or if you were from here, you'd be more emotionally invested. But you don't, because you're a good person. These type of people do my head in.
100%. Like, I don't understand. Everyone's got an opinion, right? That's what makes sports so engaging, right? Like, you watch the match, right? Not only do you watch the match, but right after the match, I guarantee you most of you do this, you go back and you watch the highlights of the match. And then after you watch the highlights of the match, you watch commentary about the match, match reactions, all that stuff. You love the sport, okay? So does everyone else who does that. Why does it matter what people think? Why does it matter? Like you said, Craig, that was literally, I didn't even cross my mind until you said that. When you were talking about how much you enjoyed the game yesterday, last thing I'm thinking about is shitting on you because you're not from here. Who cares? That's my
Exactly.
opinion on it. Who cares where you're from?
See, how do I say this? I think I understand where some of the locals are coming from, and bear with me while I try and play this out, because often you internalize things and put them into words isn't so easy. But I think that there has been a divide / competitive nature forged between fans because of the availability of tickets, or lack of availability of tickets. And that has forced fans to turn on each other. And when we as fans hear phrases, Kyle, like the sweet spot for tickets and stuff like that, we know Anfield could fill out 80,000 every week, but there's a reason it's not being done. And I think that this is no accident that there are local fans against overseas fans. And I don't think it's because they genuinely have a dislike of each other. I think it's just competition for the availability of tickets has driven us to this debate and this anger.
Sure. I mean, someone said it in the chat here. I feel like, and again, I've never been to Anfield. I've seen Liverpool when they've come over to the States, right? But I've never been to Anfield, so I don't understand it. You guys definitely have more of an idea of like the intricacies of the dynamic between the homegrown Liverpool fans and then, the tourists that come and watch the game. Okay. But why is that a thing? I guess, again, this is just a cultural thing. We don't have that in the States. Like, I've never been to a sports game where someone who was, let's say, a foreign fan came, and I've definitely met them before, where we haven't just been like, oh, that's so cool. That's so cool that you are interested in our squad. But again, I do understand that there's way more history. There's way more history. There's way more loyalty. There's more of a stigma about not supporting your local club, I guess, as opposed to compared to how it is in the States. So this is just me being open-minded. And again, Craig, you try to be open-minded as well. I respect that a lot. I feel like a lot of people lack that ability. I
understand that there are certainly some cultural differences. And by cultural differences, I'm talking about coming at it from FSG's perspective here, because they come from a background of American sports, which culturally is different in that there's usually no relegation, no promotion, a guaranteed amount of fixtures every season before the playoffs. So many things that they can do their accounting and go, yeah, this is coming, this is coming, this is coming, this is coming, this is coming. We can trade some draft picks. We can do all this kind of stuff.
Sure.
So I wonder at times, is FSG just looking at this and not understanding our perspective? Like the Super League, I think, was a prime example of this. So they looked at it, but I can understand if that's your background, come in and go, hang on. So there's this competition that we could go into. We'd still be playing in Europe. We would generate a shit ton of revenue, and the club would be sorted out, and we would be back competing at the top table, buying all the superstar players. But I think they underestimated the importance of the competitive nature of it, or the ability for clubs to promote, relegate. Who was the top 4 or 5 this year may not be the top 4 or 5 in a few years' time, and we just don't like the idea of non-competitive nature of sport.
I understand that, and I am very much in the boat that adding relegation to American sports would honestly make it more competitive. I mean, it is downright, it's so different. Okay. One thing I want to bring up, and you guys, if you follow the NBA or any really sport in the United States, you know about this. Tanking for draft picks is a thing, which is not a thing in European football, which I love. It was part of the reason why I started following it so closely, just because of how different it was. Okay. Tanking for draft picks basically means you play absolutely horrible to the point you almost lose on purpose to get the best draft pick. Okay. Fans of those teams hated that. Why would that be a thing? Why would you want to watch an entire season of a sport where the team is intentionally trying to be bad? It's horrible. It's horrible for the sport. It's horrible for the fans. And again, That's not a thing because you're fighting against relegation. Okay. If you're bad for one season, you will go down. Not, you know what I'm saying? If you actually try to lose, you'll go down, right? Now in American sports, they're trying to backtrack, right? Now they're making it so the NBA lottery it's a lottery instead of a set on, if you're the worst, you get the top draft pick. So they're trying to backtrack now. But I get the whole cultural difference. I get there's a loyalty involved. Again, this is why I want to get over there. I want to get over and see a match. I want to be like experience the culture. I feel like that's what this is all about. For me, at least.
I promise you, mate, when you do come over, that type of nonsense from that guy earlier on won't be what you get greeted, because Scousers is the most warm, friendly, loving people. You will be shown a great time. You'll be welcomed with open arms because they aren't keyboard warriors. You know, they are genuinely good people. I want to just go back to my point for a second. I was saying about FSG coming in and seeing this closed off shop. So their perspective, they're probably going, hang on, the club will generate loads of money, yada, yada, yada. But from our side, we can see 3, 4, 5 steps ahead where we go, okay, well, if the Super League was there and the club was generating all this cash and we're guaranteed, why would we invest in the squad? There's no real need or desire to continue to succeed because you've got this stuff boxed off and tied up every year. The money's there. Yeah. So I wonder, like, if they misunderstood why we're coming out from that perspective, because we love the competitive nature of it. Like that Leicester story, winning the league. You know, everybody wanted Leicester to win the league that year. That wasn't obviously in the title race. And we all love the story. And we don't want stories like that to be taken out of football. We need those type of stories.
Absolutely. Look at Aston Villa. Everyone's rooting for Aston Villa. I love Aston Villa now. I mean, it doesn't, even if you like just the story, Steven Gerrard coming in and managing, you know, Coutinho teaming up with him, the links with Luis Suarez. I mean, don't you guys love this? Don't you love like a classic, like, English team who no one really expects to be a top team like Leicester, like you were saying, and then you're almost rooting for them. You're rooting for the underdog. That's the David versus Goliath story. I mean, everyone loves that. That's what makes sports so engaging for me, you know?
Absolutely. I want to just go to transfers for a second because there's a couple of semi-developing stories at the minute.
Semi-developing. Yeah, that's true though.
So, yeah, well, it's as close as we're getting.
Yeah.
And by semi-developing, I mean that there's been offers from Leeds and I think Monaco for Takumi Minamino, who they've been knocked back. Now, no problem with the offers being knocked back, by the way. If Klopp thinks Taki's going to be part of the squad moving forward, brilliant. You know, I'm fully in support of Klopp, even though my view of Minamino might be different. But it does make me wonder, mate, are we overpricing some of our players as well at the minute? Like Phillips and Nico. They're definitely available to move on. Both of them. And 7 million offer turned back from, I think, Newcastle, if my memory's right, for Nat Phillips and Nico. I think the last price valuation I'd seen then was about 10 million. Now, I'm of the mindset that footballers' careers are short. If somebody wants to go and play football, I will never knock them for that. You know, have at it. I wish you all the best. And look, I thank them for the time with the club. But seems to be a lot of nay saying at the minute, knocking back. And for like players like Origi, Minamino, Williams, Phillips, a few others, if we're being really blunt about it, I don't think they should be part of the next stage of the development or the rebuild, because I don't think they're able to be relied upon when we need them. Might be a bit harsh there with Ox, by the way, because I fully believe his defensive side has come on leaps and bounds this year.
Yeah. No, I agree. I kind of look at it, excuse me. Look at Shaqiri. What did we sell Shaqiri for? 9 million. I thought that was a severe undersell. But then you look at, you know, the times and, you know, we were kind of just coming out of COVID. But Nat Phillips, the rejected fees for Nat Phillips, we've been trying to sell Nat Phillips. We did exactly what you suggested we should do with Salah. We gave Nat Phillips a new contract, which everyone hated. Everyone hated that we gave him an extension and didn't sign someone, which I understand. But to be fair, he somewhat deserved it. So we gave him the extension, and now we're kind of refusing to sell him unless we get what we value him at, which is completely understandable. But at some point, you got to look and say, is he really that desirable? Like, is he getting copious amounts of offers from all these clubs where we have the leverage to just sit back and say, no, we don't want that amount. We want this amount. I think at this point, if you're trying to sell a player, negotiate, get a good price, but move him on. Don't keep the player here.
Yeah, there has to be some understanding from his side as well. Like,
Yeah.
let's be honest, we were willing to take 500,000 for him, when championship clubs were interested in previously. Now, the figure knocked back was 7. I do think he's worth more than 7, if I'm being honest. But ultimately, yeah, I mean, if he came to me and I was Jurgen Klopp and he said, look, I really want this Newcastle move, I really want this West Ham move, I feel like it could enhance my career, I feel like I've done everything I could here. I like to think that is part of Jurgen that would try and make that happen for him. I really do believe that to be the case.
No, and I believe it's 100% true. I think there was a report that said he's interested in 2 specific clubs. Who knows who those clubs are? But to my understanding, I feel like if Nat Phillips went to Newcastle, I don't think he'd start. Do I think he should start? Maybe, but I feel like they have Lascelles. They have that Swiss guy. I can't remember his name. Cher. I mean, they have okay center backs, but I mean, I think Nat wants to go to a place where he's going to play consistently. Like, he's going to play every single game, and I can't blame him for that. And I think Liverpool, for the most part, are a very understanding club when it comes to players who want to leave. I really do. For example, Coutinho, like, we tried to convince Coutinho to stay. We really did, because we all loved Coutinho. The fans loved Coutinho. Klopp gave him the captain's armband. We gave him a contract extension. But at the end of the day, it was his dream. So we sold him. Okay. And Nat Phillips, same thing. Divock Origi, I feel like Divock Origi is just very nonchalant of a person. I feel like he loves being here, so he's going to stay. But if an opportunity comes up where the club's valuation of him is met, he'll be fine moving on.
He'll leave for free at the end of the season.
Yeah, that's what's nuts. See, that's
because we want to give them enough league games, from what I've read, to trigger the possible 1-year extension that the club have an option on.
Okay, I actually didn't know about that. And that's where I stand on it. Just if you're out in the market trying to sell a player, don't be stingy. But at the same time, we're stingy when we go to buy players too. So it's not that far-fetched to be like, to read that and be like, oh, that doesn't sound like us. It seems like that's how we do business now.
And we also need to move on some wages as well. If you are looking at it from a wage perspective, if you can move on some of these guys, like Jimmy Milner's wage, if it frees up at the end of the season, that's about 140 a week. I think that's not, and look, he's deserving of that, no doubt about it. But that's not a small amount of money for the club to be able to put into other wages. I'll tell you what does confuse me, Kyle, and I think even those who are still on board with the owners will have some sympathy where I'm coming from here. So for owners that even I would say have been very good with their planning, of having a path they want to tread and going along that way, to be in a situation now, and we touched on it earlier on with the contract renewals for Firmino, Salah and Mane at the time, we're now in a position where Oxlade-Chamberlain, Mane, Salah, Firmino, and who's the other one that I'm thinking of? There's one more in the squad who was in the final 18 months.
Is it Keita? It's not Keita,
yeah,
is it?
It is Keita. You're spot on. It is Naby Keita. They're in a contract situation where they've got 18 months to go. Really difficult calls now, because what do you do? If you renew these guys, some of them haven't proved that they're able to stay fit enough, or some of them may be on the decline. And there's going to be some difficult calls. But I feel like if we knew that there was a succession plan, we'd be able to accept some of these more difficult calls. But not knowing now, we're all fearing the worst, that, okay, well, they all leave for free in 18 months, or we sell them and not get anywhere near their value, and then that hurts the rebuild. And this is the confusion, I think, that has a lot of us stirring up our emotions.
Exactly. And this goes back to what we're talking about at the beginning, how we kind of keep it under wraps. Like, it's very low key at Liverpool. But the downside of that, it's good for business purposes, but the downside of that, as fans, we just overthink and we're stressing and we're thinking the worst. Like, these players, their contracts are running out. We don't know, because there's been no release by the club or anything like that saying that we have this plan in place. And another thing you got to look at, Klopp's contract runs out in 2024. Is this all part of that plan? Like, these players are only here for Klopp's tenure, and then we're doing a complete rebuild? Like, again, part of me thinks that that's not the case, because Klopp wouldn't leave Liverpool in a worse situation than it is right now. I feel like he'd leave us in a good situation. That's just my opinion. But I'm concerned. I am concerned. But also, with all the extensions this past summer, what if this upcoming summer we do the same exact thing? All those players you just mentioned, we take the summer to extend all of them as well. I think that's a possibility, you know?
Then we're in a situation of where's the new blood coming from?
Exactly.
Where
So,
are the midfielders, forwards that we know that
yep.
we still need? And look, I think, Kyle, in all honesty, it's a difficult conversation to have because of what these guys have given us as fans. You know, Mane, Firmino, Oxlade-Chamberlain, they've been part of a huge period of success for us. Well, that one particularly successful year, but either way, a huge stride forward as a football club to be back Champions League every year, up the top of the table. But I also believe that football needs to be ruthless and that, you know, the cycle is coming to an end for some of these guys. And I think that Salah, keep him. But for me, I think Mane should be sold. I think Oxlade-Chamberlain should be sold. And I genuinely don't know how I feel about the idea of Naby Keita signing a new 4-year deal. I mean, from a footballing perspective, if he's fit, no doubts, none. But has he shown us enough in the time he's been here to let us believe that if he signs a new contract, he'll suddenly be able to play all the minutes
He hasn't, exactly. He hasn't played enough. We can't even say with any degree of certainty that he deserves a new contract because he's always hurt, bro. He's always hurt. This season, we've actually seen a good amount of him, and he's scored some great goals, right? But does that justify, like you said, another 4-year deal where we're locked into that deal and he's never available? I mean, I would love to see how many total matches he's played. And I think I looked at this recently. Like each season, I think the most amount of Premier League games he played in, part of me wants to say it was in like the mid-20s, but most of them fell under 20 matches. Under 20 Premier League matches. And what's he on? He's got to be on 100 plus K a week. I think if Hendo and all them are on like 140, I think. So Keita's got to be up there, 130 maybe, something like that.
You would imagine for a 50 million fee, you'd be on a decent wage. Now, I have to admit, I don't know off the top of my head.
Yeah, I don't know either. I just know in my mind, it's not justified to give him an extension. I would sell Oxlade-Chamberlain as well. Mane, I haven't made up my mind about just because I feel like Mane, he's still got a few good years left in him, in my opinion, at least. Maybe not for Liverpool, but at the very least, with these, if we bring in a new winger, he could still be a rotational player. Look at Firmino. I feel like Firmino's actually entered that part of his career now. You know, granted, he did have the hamstring injury, but you're looking at Jota and you're like, Jota, I kind of like Jota in that center forward spot a little bit more, right? But Firmino comes on, you're not losing any sleep. You're like, oh, Bobby, okay, good. But Bobby is not. I really feel like Bobby is not the stapled on number one center forward option now. We're seeing more Jota.
I agree, but I also feel like Bobby's aware of this and would be okay about managing his minutes because he's getting on in age as well. His family's settled in Liverpool. I think he loves it here. I hope he loves it here. We certainly love him. And yeah, Jota has been amazing since he's come in, no doubt. I just feel for Mane, I feel like there will be a lot of clubs still interested in him. I feel Mane and Salah are both people who want to be a figurehead, who want to be the man. And because of talent, you know, deserves them to be the man. But I also think we could eventually replicate what we've got from Mane elsewhere far easier than maybe trying to replace a Bobby Firmino or others. So I think for me, Mane would be the one of the front three that I would initially say move on, but with a heavy heart, of course.
Oh, absolutely. Every fan, even if you want to sell Mane, it's definitely with a heavy heart. He had one outstanding season, but he still produces. Okay, I still want to put that in people's minds. Like he's still, regardless of how well he's playing, which kind of has been poor last season, more so than this season, but still produces. Go look at his goals. I mean, he still produces. Okay, so that's something to think about as well. But we do need that consistency, you know, and that's again goes back to Salah. Like Salah's consistency is just remarkable, Craig. It's so remarkable how consistent this guy has been, which again, just extend the guy. Mane, probably not, maybe sell him, but who would you bring in, right? If you sold Mane, you would have to bring in one or even two players that can play on the wing and produce in the Premier League consistently. Who could that be?
I would like to see a youthful player for the future brought in, and somebody like Jared Bowen, somebody like Rafinha. I'm not sure on Diaz, by the way. I haven't seen enough of him to really make a well-rounded opinion on Luis Diaz, but certainly they're the type of players I think I'd like to bring in. looking at other parts of the pitch as well, I mean, look, I'm worried about midfield because on paper it looks stacked, but when you actually look at the minutes and the availability, it's not so stacked. And also, I feel like we have a lot of similar type of midfielders, and the only ones that I think, maybe Curtis Jones aside, can get on the front foot, really, Thiago, Oxlade-Chamberlain, and Keita. And we've laid out the conversation today about why we don't think that they're reliable. Now, chat, I will admit, I am 100% a hypocrite. Someone says Jarrod plays right now. Mane played right before he came to Liverpool. Doesn't play right now. Anyway, for me, I'm a hypocrite on Thiago because I understand he's on a heavy wage. I understand he's injury prone. But if you could say to me, Craig, I will Thiago out for the knockout stages of the Champions League and the title run in every year, then I'm saying, all right, sign me up, because I know what he can do, how good he is. But I understand that's hypocritical. But then I'm a football fan. I'm allowed to be.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it would be a flat out lie if I said my opinion doesn't change, especially on footballers. Like with Mane, I used to think that Mane had to go. Like we had to sell Mane. And this was like at the beginning of last season, midway through last season. I was like, he's washed. He's got to go. And then after a few good matches where he scores, he assists, he's playing well, I'm like, no, we can't sell him. We can't sell him. Opinions change. Everyone who's chatting, who disagrees with me right now, your opinion will change, whether it's tomorrow or next month. It's ridiculous.
It's not disrespect. It's a conversation about the future. And if Mane's best days are behind him. And I think even though he's putting up numbers, his stats will show he's fallen off a bit. He said it himself. He wasn't at his best last season. Could have had long COVID. I don't know. But ultimately, we need to find the balance between admiration, respect, loyalty, love, and cold-hearted decisions, which need to be made. So I don't want to still have Sadio Mane at 36 and we're going, yeah, well, okay, he's only scored 8 this season. But do you remember back in 2019 when he did really well? It's what have you done for me now? That's the way football is.
Sorry about that. Hold on. Yeah, I do want to address this one comment about Firmino, saying Firmino supplies shiny white teeth and nothing else. And then he brings up the fact, look at the statistics. Please go look at his statistics. He is in the 99th percentile in almost every forward statistics defensively, specifically pressures, progressive passes, chances created, all of that. Okay, per 90 minutes. So please go look at the statistics. He's still one of the best center forwards in the world.
If there is a Liverpool player that does get disrespect, I feel it is Bobby.
I'm fully on board. Been Bobby.
If you don't understand what he does, the phrase defending from the front was nearly written for Bobby Firmino.
Yeah. Yep. He's always pressuring.
Great at it as well. Ian Rush was very similar type of great defensive player from the front. And when we play the way we play, Kyle, it's about winning the ball back as quickly as we can. It's about pressing in those high areas. Without Bobby Firmino and Lallana back in the day, in fairness to Adam Lallana, that press would have never been as good as it was or has been.
Exactly. I mean, winning the ball back within, I think it's 5 seconds is the whole gegenpressing idea. You increase your chances. And Bobby is always leading the press, okay? Jota's doing a lot better job of it now recently, too. But if you look at all the pressure statistics of the front three, okay, the center forward runs that press. Mane and Salah aren't really pressuring. They follow the center forward when they lead the press, and then midfield follows in behind as we push our line further up the field. Okay, that's the whole idea of it. All right, and then I think James Pierce actually had an article today, I believe it or not, about the high line statistics, which I haven't. I don't really remember too much about it, so I won't get into it. But again, it's a system. It's a system, and Bobby Firmino fits it beautifully. So if there's ever a struggle to find the right replacement for a center forward, it was Bobby. And believe it or not, we got Diogo Jota in, who has done an exceptional job, and he can also play on the left wing. So again, it's about getting the right players in the system.
Yeah, I mean, it's so difficult, isn't it? Because I hate talking about moving lads on, but I ultimately know that what Klopp asks of his players is so demanding, can only be kept up for a certain period of time, and burnout is a realistic thing. So it's tough. I mean, none of us will agree on everything. I think if we can just disagree in a respectful way and talk it out, that's surely a path forward. For you, who would you like to see Liverpool, or what positions, Kyle, do you think Liverpool should be looking to address? And what's your take on the Fabio Carvalho situation?
Definitely wingers. I would love to see some young wingers come in. We've seen Ox and Jones play up on the wing, especially Cade Gordon. think Cade Gordon's a very promising young talent. That's not to say that he should be the immediate second option to Salah or anything like that. I do think we need another player to come in while he's still developing, but he's definitely promising. So wingers, center forward, maybe you could bring in a potential replacement. The Carvalho situation, I definitely think that's more realistic than like anything. That seems like the exact profile of a player we would go for, like under the radar, young, a team that we have good relationship with, with Fulham and Harvey Elliott and everything, and then Harry Wilson also going the other way. These are all signs that Liverpool are actually looking at this guy. So that's the first thing. Midfield, absolutely. James Milner's getting older. Keita, not sure if we're going to give him an extension. And then, of course, you got older players. Henderson's getting up there. He's going to continue to play, though. Thiago into his, he's only got two and a half more years on his contract. So he's probably not going to be extended. So you still have to plan for the future in the midfield. I think where we're most solid is our defense, especially, left back and the center back spots. Right back, if we're looking to sell Nico Williams, who's going to come up in the right back spot? Except what was his name? Yes, thank you, Connor Bradley. He's very solid. I think at the moment though, Nico Williams is actually a threat on that right side, attacking wise. I don't know though. Is he good enough to back up Trent? He's not even. You can't even have a conversation about it because the level of Trent Alexander-Arnold is so insane that you can't even talk about buying a backup for him. I feel like they have to build from the academy at that spot because if you bring in, let's say, name a top right back in the world right now, like just off the top of your head.
Well, let's go with the Chelsea argument because they love to let us think that Reece James is better.
Reece James would not play. Reece James would not play. Okay, he'd never play. That's my point. So you have to look at young players who are going to be okay with not playing or maybe getting a game here or there. So I think I just want to see multiple attackers brought in, young wingers. Even if you want to get a center forward, you can. But midfield is where we need to focus on, Craig. We really need to build in the midfield, especially because Klopp likes to have options in the midfield.
My two options in midfield for the short term, Youri Tielemans, for maybe next summer. And by next summer, I mean 2023, because I'm convinced we're signing Bellingham. I'm absolutely convinced of it. I don't know when. I'm not going to go and say it's next summer, but the Youri Tielemans contract situation at Leicester has me very intrigued. And I'd also like to see us go and try and, my phrase here, shithouse a few clubs like Barcelona who are in dire need of some money and have players like Frankie de Jong there. Or go and try and destabilize Inter Milan and try and get Barella out of there, although I think he signed a new contract. So there are players there that I think we could realistically get. Normally I would say don't go near Leicester because they get top dollar for their players, but Tielemans still hasn't signed that new contract, so I think he's shopping himself around.
Yeah, I think he'd be stupid not to. I really do. Leicester was a great move for him, coming from Monaco, I believe he came from. Great move for him, especially with, Leicester, bringing in Brendan Rodgers. But have they plateaued? Have they become stagnant? Maybe. Maybe that's why he's shopping himself around. I think Tielemans has in his mind he's meant for bigger things than Leicester, so it's smart for him to shop around. The one I'm interested in that's relatively new, I think today, is the Dybala situation, because I was under the impression he was definitely going to sign a new contract. But we have legitimately been linked with Dybala for 5 years. It's crazy. We're always linked with Dybala. Would you bring in Dybala?
My initial instinct would be to say no, but I'm not angry if Liverpool signed Dybala. Don't get me wrong. I just don't know. I mean, look, if I'm really looking to that team, I know he's out now, but Chiesa would be the ideal person.
Yeah.
But yeah, with Dybala's contract situation, the fact that they've just signed Vlahovic, yeah, we should probably have a conversation about it. I want to bring this up for you, Kyle, because I don't have enough information on this, but I know you've spoken about this before. So the Red Sox traded their best player last year, Mookie Betts, and are now in a rebuild. FSG better not be stupid enough to do the same thing with us. My ignorance on baseball just won't allow me to really talk. And look, I also don't believe that the two things are intrinsically linked. So I don't believe that what happens in the Red Sox will be mirrored at Liverpool or vice versa. And I certainly don't believe that the finances cross over. They're separate entities entirely. What I do, however, believe, Kyle, that if our owners are to be emotionally invested in a club/franchise, it would make sense it would probably be their hometown club in the Red Sox. So I think that could be a good indication of what may be coming down the line.
Yeah, and I feel like the first rule of business always, unfortunately, is to not get emotionally involved, because then when you mix emotions with money, bad decisions are made. So I think FSG do a good job of that, quote unquote good. Now I'm doing what you do. I'm doing the quotes now. But look, I actually don't. I'm not the one to talk about the Red Sox either, because number one, I'm a Yankees fan. That's number one. Number two, I don't watch baseball. It's like I played baseball, but I am all baseballed out. I don't watch it really at all anymore. I just watch if the Yankees are in the playoffs. But the whole Mookie Betts scenario, that was bad. I thought Mookie Betts was the guy. And, they traded him. They're in a rebuild. That's fine. I couldn't speak to what was going on behind the scenes. The Salah situation is way different. I feel like the Salah situation is way different. Mookie Betts wasn't considered like the best player in the MLB at the time. He was the best in his position, no question. But Mo Salah is the best in the world. Like he's definitely in that conversation now, and he's arguably the best in the world right now. So he deserves the extension at Liverpool. And fans, it would be a completely different story. Red Sox fans are kind of over it now. Like they were salty at first, but they're over it now. Liverpool fans would never let FSG live that down, ever. And Klopp, I think, would be just as pissed as the fans. I really do. Klopp, you guys, a lot of people claim that Klopp's, backs the owners. He kind of has to. He's employed by them. But at the same time, he does keep his mouth shut. He'll say, he likes this player, likes that player. But for the most part, he kind of just keeps his head down and does his thing. I think that would piss off Klopp. That would really piss off Klopp. So that's where I stand on
the midfield situation again. Actually, I have to be honest. I thought that the immediate replacement for Gini Wijnaldum was going to be Yves Bissouma from Brighton, because it was just such a. No, I know he has a potential legal issue, but that still hasn't linked Steven Gerrard or stopped Steven Gerrard being linked with a move. And myself and Paddy joked about this, but imagine the conversation if Gerrard is to become the next manager and he suddenly realizes he's got more support at Villa financially than he probably would have at Liverpool. That won't be a great look.
No, well, I mean, he sold Grealish for $100 million. You can do a lot with that. And then you look at when we sold Coutinho, we went on a spending spree too. Of course, it wasn't, I guess the quantity of players, but it was the quality that we got, between Alisson and Van Dijk. I don't know. That's how I look at it. I feel like players look and they're like, wow, these teams are spending more than us. They just sold Grealish, guys. $100 million for Grealish. Do you have any idea how much you can get for that? And, that's just where I stand on that. But I think they're okay with him spending because he just got there. When Klopp just got here, he was immediately bringing players in, brought in Grujic, Matip, Wijnaldum, all those guys. Okay. I think, Milner was already there. But then you look at the next season, bringing in Mane. Like he signed players consistently until he built a team that he wanted. And that's kind of where I want to leave you with this, Craig. Do you think Klopp is satisfied with the team he has now? How much of this is truly only on FSG, and how much of this do you think is Klopp being satisfied with who he has in the squad right now?
Yeah, I mean, I'll caveat this by saying I was shocked to be told by Chris actually that City technically have less players registered than us in the Premier League. So we're working with a smaller squad. That blew my mind, by the way, because I didn't think of it. I guess we just look at the quality of their backups. But to your point, I do believe that Klopp buys into the group, is a loyal man. And I think to get the buy-in that he gets from the players, you need to be a man of your word. You need to be true. And I do get the idea that he buys in for a season with these players. When they go to war together, when the season starts, they're a unit, and he doesn't want that broken up. But I also think that his loyalty could potentially be a fault in some occasions. And one of those faults to me takes place every time he lets substitutions go too long, and he's believing the players will work it out on the pitch, which is great for a while, but ultimately I think he can be too stubborn. But, how do you get to where you are in the world in his position without being a little bit stubborn and without thinking that you know what you're on about because the success has been there? So, yeah, I find it very hard for me to be critical of Jurgen Klopp in any way because I love the man first and foremost.
Yeah, I can't be critical of Klopp at all. I think if out of anyone there, aside from maybe Bobby Firmino, I love Klopp the most. He's amazing what he's done. It's amazing what Klopp has done. And Klopp, in my opinion, deserves most, if not all, the credit. I mean, the turnaround of the club, because FSG were here before Klopp. The turnaround of the club once Klopp came in was astounding. Everything from the mentality of the team, the quality of players that were attracted to come in, the stadium expanding, like just the culture of the club expanded drastically. And I feel like most of that has to do with Klopp. Just his charisma and who he was as a manager, coming in and wanting to be part of a long-term project as opposed to, a short stint at a big club. That's huge. It's huge. And I mean, someone brought up Tyler Morton as being our backup CDM. I actually respect the fact that Klopp is giving these young players chances, mainly because that's what he said he wanted to do. All right. He wanted these young players to be able to see a path into the first team. You got to respect his, not loyalty. I mean, it is loyalty, but his consistency. He didn't change. He has been consistent the entire time. So I respect that a lot.
On that, I fully agree with you. And nothing makes me happier than seeing a youngster given an opportunity and shining. And it's also important because if you're looking to bring in the next Harvey Elliott or Fabio Carvalho at the moment, you need to be able to say, well, look at X, Y, or Z. We're not afraid to give these guys a chance. We're not afraid to bring them through. So I love that about the man as well. There was one last point I wanted to bring up before we finish. I'm going to be streaming FIFA, by the way, at 10 p.m. on Twitch if anybody wants to come over and join me for that one. What was it I wanted to ask you? Well, firstly, I wanted to ask you what's coming up with you guys, Nothing But Reds. I mean, always happy to give you guys a plug. How is Steve as well? Please do send him my best.
Yeah, Steve's doing well, working hard, just like me. I had the day off today. We're taking this week off from content, but we will be uploading a pre-recorded Sunday summary, as always, this upcoming Sunday, 8 a.m. most likely, because the Chiefs are on Sunday, so I got to get to work early, and I got to be back in the Chiefs game. Oh my God. I can't wait. Yeah. But normal content will be resuming next Monday. So we'll be looking forward to that. But yeah, if you guys go over there now, goal reactions, statistical analysis of the players we're linked with, anything you could, be interested in during the international break is over there. So go check us out at Nothing But Reds.
Love that. And do go check the guys out. I mean, I love chatting with Kyle and Steve. It's been great to build up a friendship with these guys over the past few years. And it's been great as well to see their love of the club, which is what initially attracted me to the guys, because I think we often forget that this is a worldwide fan base and that the club will continue to grow all around the world and that there's more of us than there are of them. That's what I like to keep reminding as well. There's more of us worldwide fans than there are those small minority that like to be vocal and don't want us all around. So important to keep that in mind. But look, Kyle, I appreciate your time as always, my friend. Don't forget, get over, check out Nothing But Reds. Tell Stephen Kyle we said hello when you go over as well. Make yourself be known in the chat. And I hope that you've got a cracking week ahead. Enjoy the Chiefs game of the weekend.
Absolutely, Craig. Thanks so much for having me on, man. Always a blast. I'll try to make it on more. It's just, busy and time changes and all that.
You are with work.
Yeah, but great chat as well. I really enjoyed this, man.
Hey, thank you for your honesty, mate. Thank you for a differing opinion. I think if we have more of these type of chats as fans, we'll find some, places in the middle where we can meet and resolve situations. So I think talk is always the way forward.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Cheers, guys. FIFA stream in a few minutes. I say stream, it's going to be carnage again because I'm crap, but I'll see you guys over there. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.